welcome to McGowan's Canvas Miracles. We got a special guest today, Mayor Adam Lordon. He's been a couple times. Anytime I've ever asked him to come in or any of the radio shows or TV shows and let us know what's going on in the city, he's always willing to help and shows up for everything. So I want to thank you for coming in today. And today there's been a lot going on talking about homelessness and the things coming up, and it's getting closer to winter and stuff like that, and lots of division on the TV with all the the shootings going on and things that are happening, that are always happening, but it seems like right now we're on a big divide, and the biggest question is what, as our city, what are we doing? And we have different people on each week, whether it's the soup kitchen, the mayor, the MPs, just talk about what are we doing to make sure that we're not as impacted and we can help, people that are at the less level that have struggled or gone through things, to make sure that we're not letting them fall through the cracks kind of thing. So we're going to paint a picture, maybe some clouds today, and talk about that. So thank you for coming in, Adam.
We'll paint a literal picture and a metaphorical one at the same time.
Exactly.
Well, I thought you invited me back because I'm such an exceptional painter.
Well, it was that too. I needed some talent here finally. I was like, oh, what are we going to do? Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we'll get started with a little blue and white. I'm going to, when I was thinking about today, I don't know about this about people. When I was young, I left home at an early age and I lived on the street myself and struggled through a lot of that stuff that people go through. So I understand the ups and downs and coming from broken families and poverty and all those things.
These days, a lot of people get up and feel like the world's against them,
Of course.
And that it's a challenging environment right now. It's never felt more hostile in my time as mayor and in my life. People seem to want to be aggrieved. They want to point fingers. They want to shout before they actually have the information that they might be seeking. And that's a challenging environment to be in any leadership position, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think it's always important to stay grounded as a mayor and councilors in this community, for example. Like, these are part-time roles. So I have a full-time job. Most of the councilors also have full-time jobs. And we're really we get paid for these roles, but not very much. I get about $35,000 a year as a salary to be mayor, and I do it as a close to full-time job. And so, there's always this thing that happens when people get elected, that all of a sudden, to a lot of people, they become the bad guy or the other. And, I always try to stay grounded for myself in leadership, but also for the other folks elected in other areas. Like, we're also just people in the community who want to try to make a difference and make things better in the community. So for me, going way back to when I first got involved in terms of my why, it's because I had come home from living in Toronto and I saw all of the beauty and potential in our community, but we were not acting like we were living in the contemporary moment. We still did a lot of things like it was 30 years ago. We had to make investments in our public spaces. We had to make investments in renewing our programs, getting with some of the technological opportunities that were there, infrastructure renewal, supporting people who have ideas in this community, whether that's for new businesses or new community initiatives, new events and festivals, making sure that people in Miramichi know that Miramichi is for everybody and everyone's welcome here.
Just going to grab some blue and white on our brush and start splashing around the canvas and just letting things happen. We're not going to be serious about what happens. We're just going to put some blue and white and move it around on the canvas. If you're at the point where you don't have housing and you don't have food and you don't have the mental capability, what are you going to do? You're going to steal, you're going to do bad things, you're going to do drugs, you fall down through the cracks, right?
Well, we do understand that issues that we see in our community and communities across the country, right? Mm-hmm. Big and small. A few years ago, you would see a lot of these challenges with homelessness in big cities, and you'd say, oh, well, that's a big city thing. And sadly, we know now that it is not just a big city thing. And we've always had challenges in smaller rural communities like Miramichi as well with drugs. And it does feel like those things have been created, the drug crisis in this country over a lot of decades and a lot of systemic failures, And there are not going to be any easy fixes to any of these difficult, challenging social circumstances. And yet still, as a community, here in our city, in our little city, we've got to do our best to try to figure these things out. And it's going to take all levels of government and community and businesses and everybody really working together to just do their part. And as a city, our part that we've got to work on, and which we are working on now, as it relates to drug use and increased criminality, incidents of crime and vandalism in our downtown and Newcastle, but across the city, is to support the police and provide more resources, which they're doing now. There's a much larger presence over the last month or so, a few weeks in downtown Newcastle, and it seems like it's working. There was a big drug bust just, I guess it will be almost 2 weeks ago now. But we really need social supports too. Like, you're not going to police your way out of homelessness.
No.
You just aren't. And so, we need other levels of government to bring those resources to help people with mental health and addictions issues, more outreach workers to help people transition in some more permanent housing and employment opportunities. The ones that can, because we understand that just like all people, no two people are the same, and they all have their own unique circumstances that have led them to those difficult moments, right? So there needs to be much more services put in place across the board to help people, because everyone's needs are going to be different.
What are some of the things you've tried to implement, things that haven't worked, or things you feel good about that have we've tried this and it's moved forward, it's doing well in helping alleviate some of this stuff?
I would just want to point out, and mental health and addiction seems to be the focal point at this moment, in particular drug use and addictions, right? Mm-hmm. So support and resources for rehabs, for example, is a provincial responsibility. So they need to step up. And we had one government for 5-6 years that didn't really implement additional resources in the way we need them. Now we've got a new one, and they haven't yet either, but hopefully they will, right? And this is the thing in our province, we've got a two-party system, and everyone loves to point the fingers on what the other one's not doing, but we need people to work together. It's not a red or a blue problem or a left or a right. Like, we've got to get more resources. Everybody knows it, and we need provincial leadership in doing that. On the local level, over the last couple of years, there's an organization called Miramichi Housing Solutions. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yes, I've had them on, yeah.
Yeah, and it would be, they have done tremendous work. And we have seen these issues of homelessness and, again, drug use and crime, because they are separate issues. Not everybody who's out doing drug deals in our community is homeless, and not everybody who's homeless is using drugs. So it's important to clarify that. Mm-hmm. But Miramichi Housing Solutions has really risen to the occasion in our community. And over the last couple of years, they've taken on more responsibility. They used to just be the youth house. Now they operate the permanent shelter here in the community, 6 beds. And right now they're in the late stages, thankfully, of a new project to establish a larger permanent shelter. So it'll be 14 beds at the larger permanent shelter. It'll be up just off King George Highway.
So the goal of these beds is a temporary?
These are temporary and transitional. So it'll be for people who don't have a bed tonight, mm-hmm. and need a bed for a little while. Right. And I would say that really they should come back on and speak in detail, because I mm-hmm. have the high level understanding, but they certainly are the experts.
Right.
In addition to the 14 beds, that will be 14 better than 6, there's also going to be on site at that location the new every winter out of the cold shelter that will flex up for 16 more beds, which they can also use in the summer now when we have to have out of the extreme heat. Which we're seeing more and more because of climate change, right? So that site will give us a significant centralized resource. In addition to that, they've secured funding. The city has helped provide some of the funding for the capital project. We're also providing operational funding for their resources, along with social development and at the federal level too. But they've secured money to do more wraparound services. So these are the supports that people need in the short term, like medical care, mm-hmm. Haircuts, but also provide resources to give people the opportunities to have navigators to help get out of these areas and into more stable housing and employment opportunities for the people that they're able to achieve those goals.
Welcome back to McGowan's Canvas Miracles. Well, we're here with the mayor And we're whipping through this painting in no time because the conversation is not even allowing us time to paint. It's been a great, one of those deep conversations. So
I'm being too detail oriented on my painting.
That's
Rob.
right. Just throw some white and blue on,
which is a
yeah.
tendency I have across the board sometimes. But I'm doing my best here to catch up.
It's great. I'm going to go through some of the issues.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, and I would always encourage people, generally speaking, a lot of this seems to be really extreme views that are living and getting a lot of air on social media. And I think it's really disappointing what's happened with social media over the last few years. It seems like it's become a race to the bottom in so many ways.
Oh, 100%.
And it's a cesspool for the breeding of misinformation. And that's difficult when you're even in a small community like ours and you're trying to get real information and facts out to people. But on these matters, we've seen this. As you said, we were chatting earlier before we came on. In our country, there's been a lot of changes over the last couple of years to reduce the number of immigrants and the number of international students coming into Canada. And that makes sense as a policy for some of the larger cities in our country, like Toronto, maybe like Vancouver or Montreal. But in a place like Miramichi, the demographics are so different. We have still an aging population. We have a growing population again for the first time in decades over the last few years, but we're talking about growing by a couple hundred people a year. While meanwhile, in the labor force, we're 10,000 people short between now and 2030 just to replace all the people that are going to retire. And we're not going to replace 10,000 people in the labor force over the next 5 years by people having babies. They're just not having babies the way they used to. So we need to bring people into our community. And this is the context for communities all across Atlantic Canada. So the mayors of all of the maritime communities of New Brunswick, we've passed motions, we're advocating nationally that they need to have different programs for smaller rural communities like ours than they do for national big cities. We cannot have a one-size-fits-all because they may not need more people, but we still do. And the idea that an immigrant is going to take your job, it's very problematic in a number of ways, and it's just simply not true. Again, right now we have hundreds of jobs in our community that people can't fill. I get messages regularly from business owners who are telling me that they have to now not be open every day that they want to be open because they don't have enough people. They cannot find workers. And as it relates to housing, again, like in the entire country, we need to continue to aggressively build housing. We need to build about 250 units a year, every year from now till 2031. This is to build for the housing that we need in the community. Right now, we're still below a 2% vacancy rate. Below 2% vacancy means effectively there's no movement in your market. You need to have a target of a 4 to 5 vacancy rate. So we still need to build hundreds of units to get ourselves to where we need to be for who's here right now, and also to anticipate for the new people that we still need to come here for the labor force. So housing is an area that I'm very, very passionate about, and it's an area where, as a community, we have had tremendous success.
I see housing being built everywhere. Every road you go down, there's new housing going up.
And some people look at that, Rob, as you're referencing and say, okay, well, that's probably enough. But it's not. We are going to continue to need to build all types of housing. We need more affordable housing. We need market housing. We need apartments.
So that's a conversation that I always, in the coffee shops and wherever I am, this is how the conversation goes. Well, affordable housing, what's that? They're saying, $1,100 a month for one bedroom apartment, or $1,200 or $1,300 a month, and then they want to give us a minimum wage job where I couldn't possibly afford to rent that house, and then they bring in an immigrant to fill that job at minimum wage because that's what they want to hire at a low wage. So how does the person who's having this conversation justify that in their head?
I think those are all really fair concerns. And I guess I'd ask those people, who's the they, right?
Well,
because
businesses. They're saying the business community wants to hire at a low rate, which if you're a business, you're out to make profit. So of course you want to hire at a low rate.
Yep.
And as a government, we make it possible by bringing in tons of people that will work at low wages, and then our housing prices go up. So explain to me why their narrative is wrong.
Well, the people, that are coming in are not driving up our housing prices. The lack of stock, like that's economics, right?
Right,
Supply
yeah.
and demand.
Yeah.
So right now we do not have enough housing. That's what's driven up the price of housing. So
Yeah.
in a community like Miramichi, where we haven't had enough stock for years now, coming on a decade or more, we have been into a position where rent in Miramichi is almost the same as rent in Halifax. And it shouldn't be that way, right?
No.
So how can we relieve this is that we have to build more stock. So units right now that people are charging $1,200 for, that should probably be about an $800 a month rent. They can get away with it because there are not enough units, scarcity, right? So when we build new units, including units that we fill the market with stock, it will drive down prices as we have more units available.
Yes, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
So like that
So that's the goal of the city, is to get more units built so that we can get the prices down.
Absolutely.
And you guys,
and by the way,
you've done that.
We're having big success
What
on
you
that.
had, like I think 900 last, like there's,
Oh no!
I had Veronica on, it was a huge number.
The record, the record high that we've had for 1 year was about 350.
Okay, maybe she was talking overall in the
But
last.
yeah, I mean, over the last, we've had record highs over each of the last 3 years.
Okay.
And every community, big and small in this country, is trying to get more housing built.
Okay.
And Miramichi is succeeding. We're building at twice the national average.
That's one part of that conversation for sure. We go down that road. So now, the job market.
This is a difficult question, and I would argue that these big economic issues like this, belong largely to the federal and provincial government.
Right.
It doesn't mean we don't have a role to play in it, but and I am no expert of economic theory. I've picked up a thing or two in my time here to be an advocate. I think that we want, as a community, we want everybody to have a fair and living wage. There's
Yes.
no question there, right? So maybe you should bring in some business owners sometime and ask them why they don't want people to have fair wages in some cases. I don't think that bringing in people that we need to keep the doors open those people are not the problem. Most of the people who are coming in into our community through immigration are coming as economic immigrants. So they're coming to take jobs or fill jobs. Population-wise, demographically, a lot of these folks are Filipino in our community, and Filipinos are such a wonderful, positive culture. To me, like, I challenge anybody to be around people of Filipino descent and not be in a good mood. They radiate happiness. It is absolutely inaccurate and dangerous to suggest that people who come from elsewhere are going to erode our moral fabric. That's dangerous and not true. And so, I think, again, the other side of this coin is when we celebrate diversity and we open our hearts and minds to A, the need economically for new people to come here, but then B, that the cultural and social opportunities that come from that. These new restaurants, new entrepreneurs, new festivals and events. Like, look at the new the Fiesta Extravaganza, the huge Filipino festival that's now happened in our community for 3 straight summers. It's a huge economic opportunity. It brings people from across the country, and it celebrates their culture in a way that we've been doing for a lot of time. With the Irish Festival or the Scottish Festival, the Fête Nationale de l'Acadie. So any new culture should feel welcomed to come in and celebrate their cultural history in the same way we do with some of the more longer term cultures that are present in the community too, right? And I think when we all get together, like we do at the Mayor's Welcome Barbecue every year, with all different cultures and all different backgrounds, we understand that everybody here is a Miramichier who wants the best for their community and for their family.
So just whenever you're painting a sky horizon line, just try and keep a straight line.
A straight line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something relatively straight. Because our eye, as it gets off in the distance, everything becomes plane with the earth. So it's like a level.
It's important if people have questions about what the city is doing or programs or reach out to the city. If you've got a question about a city service, reach out to the city. And I know that I answer every message I get, I know that my colleagues on council do the same, and we make sure that the staff do the same too.
Well, welcome back to McGowan's Canvas Miracles. We're here with the mayor today who's squeezed us into a schedule. He's nice enough to do it. We're going to finish off this painting real quick and talk about what you'd like to see going forward.
As it relates to the issues right now of increased, visible public drug use and crime and safety, like we hear that and we see it and it's acknowledged. So just a few weeks ago now at council, we had an open discussion. People can go and see that all of our meetings are live streamed. It's on the website, mayormachie.org. We had a really thoughtful discussion. So the police chief has laid out the extra resources that have already been put in place. So there are more officers on the ground, in the downtown especially. We've employed the Integrated Enforcement Unit, which is the drug specialization unit, and they're on the ground actively in the downtown. And they're employing different tactics and focusing on the area, bringing resources in. We've also asked by motion for staff to come up with an action plan for what else we can do and what we need to be advocating for specifically from the provincial and federal governments, because everybody's got to have a hand in these solutions and working with community, right? So I think in those areas, there are plans now in place that are going to move quickly. To make this situation better. When the shelter opens in a couple months' time, that's going to make a huge impact as well.
Okay.
And then in general, as a community, what I always want is that everybody in Miramichi feels seen, welcome, safe, and respected. And I think in all of these things right now that we're seeing in our community and happening elsewhere too, we've got to stay focused on our pile as a community.
Exactly,
I'm not the mayor of Canada. And as a community, we see these things happening elsewhere, but it's up to us to roll up our sleeves and try to make things better in our community, in our neck of the woods, right? And I think, as you've said, Rob, I think we all have to sort of start to be a little more critical in our thinking in terms of what's real and what's not, and to just be respectful. Let's maybe not start from a place of assuming the worst in each other. And I'm saying, as a community, Miramichiers need to come together and rise together. We're a resilient community. We're going to lift each other up. So let's
if there's something you can help with, help. If there's somewhere you can volunteer. I know the food bank needs volunteers all the time. The soup kitchens need volunteers all the time.
Yeah.
There's always things you can do.
Let's assume the best in each other, not the worst. And let's work together to make things better with the challenges that we have and to take advantage of our opportunities too. So we have the best possible Miramichi for every single Miramichier.
I like that. We have all the means, all the resources to be a difference. I met a girl with cancer who was going through, she had an acronym she wore on her shirt everywhere, HOPE. And she said, it's help one person every day. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. And this was somebody with cancer struggling through life to make a difference in the world. So if you can make a difference in the world, and it's easy to complain and say everybody's not doing something, that guy sucks, whatever. What are you doing to make a difference, an impact? And that's as a community, if we all make an impact on somebody in some way, we would have the best community in the world. Agreed. And I want to thank you for coming in today. Don't worry about the painting.
Look, there we go.
It sort of created its own waterfall.
No one's going to accuse us of being a masterpiece. But
the painting wasn't that mattered.
You set the table for a great discussion.
Art, like everything, is just something to find some common ground that you can do something together and have a conversation. And I hope that we have more conversations in our community and make an impact. And thank you for coming in.
And thank you.